be with each organization and community that's represented here, that you will keep the staff members safe, that you will give them the perseverance and the skill that they need to keep doing the service that they do. For the meeting today, I ask that you grant us wisdom and discernment as we seek to make decisions that are based on love and of service and just of a spirit of unity. For those that are hurting, I ask that you be with them. Just guide us and help us. In your son's most precious hands we pray. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Stevens asked that I let everybody know that we are taping for YouTube. We're recording for YouTube, not taping. That would have been a long time ago. But it is not live today. So. We have public session. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to address the board? All right, here's none. We'll move on. Item number D, approval of the minutes. You have before you the Board of Commission meeting minutes from January 6th, as well as the annual members meeting from January 6th. I'll be happy to entertain a motion on one or both at the same time.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving on to item number E, committee and other meeting reports. Sewer feasibility implementation meeting of December 2nd, 2024. Mr. Elliott.
All right, this is what we mentioned at the last meeting, that we'll always be a couple months behind how this one will work. They met, the first meeting I believe was on December 2nd, is that what the date says? December 2nd, and then to give them a fair opportunity to be able to review the minutes that were drafted for them, since they're not on any other committee here for the most part. I think there are 3 commissioners, but there's like 6 other members, not including myself, that are on there. Allow them the opportunity to review them, make corrections if necessary, and approve them. That they did that at the January meeting, which was after the January board meeting that we had. For us, it'll be presented here. I know that Ms. Stevens is sending out those draft meeting minutes to everyone as she types them up following those meetings. So I guess essentially you have about 6 weeks to review those if there were any changes that weren't made. And at the last meeting, there weren't any that I recall where there went following the ad hoc committee.
No.
So they approved them as they were presented back in December. Ms. Stevens typed them up. So with that said, we'll present those today for the board to approve as submitted for the record.
So you're presenting the December 2nd meeting minutes today.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion. Second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Dial. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Operations and planning meeting, January 15th, 2015. Mr. Bob Ayers.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We did meet and we discussed our current projects that we have. I have reviewed this and I think that Lynn's did a good job capturing that. And it's not included in these minutes right here, but Chris and staff put together a nice spreadsheet showing our different projects and completion. So just, hats off for your team, Chris, for doing all that. There's a couple action items that'll be on our agenda tonight that we're going to be recommending to execute with the Harbor Corporation. And that will be coming up later on in our meeting today. talked about different compliance matters, notably the odors still, going on, the roller coaster that we're having on the eastern part of our system. And it was Mr. Hinkle's first meeting for the committee, so that was very good. But anyway, I think Lynn has captured this, so I'll move that we approve these minutes. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Executive committee meeting of January 15th, 2025. Take us back. The executive committee met on January the 15th. Bob Fair, Sylvia Boyd, and I to discuss allowing the attorney Pope Flynn to go ahead and proceed with. Chris, what did we ask him to proceed with specifically? I can't recall.
We can pursue in the options for what statutory recommendations that they may have that came out of discussion from the ad hoc committee, if I believe that's correct. Does that sound right?
And the reason we did that is so that we did not lose any time or offset the schedule by waiting on this board to give him that authority. When we approved it, it was contingent on him being able to proceed past this date as long as none of you objected, because it's not an action item on here, is it?
That's going to be discussed in executive session. So there may be something that comes out of that. I don't know. I think he's going to give us an update as to where he is, and there may or may not be any action that will be taken following that.
Yeah, so as your executive committee, we felt comfortable asking him to proceed, knowing we would come back to you as a full board and either get your consent or we would stop it, whichever pleasure of the board. Chris, you're saying we'll know more at executive session?
Yes, sir. He's going to present to us in executive session, and then there'll be, consideration for what may discussion in there that may take place following.
Move to approve these minutes.
Do we have minutes in here? All right. Motion by Mr. Ayers, we have a second. Second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Finance and Administration Committee, meeting. Ms. Myers.
Yes, so the F&A committee met on January 28th of this year. I'm not going to say that because I'll get mine wrong too. Among the topics were the project updates, that same spreadsheet that Mr. Ferris mentioned. We did hear from both Kyle Lindsay and the executive director on some potential staffing considerations for the upcoming budget, some additional positions that may come to fruition. Obviously, we reviewed and approved the year-to-date and December financial reports. And then today, there will be an item with our recommendation related to some adjustments, some amendments to the financial accounting policy. We also discussed the hydrogen sulfide issue as well. But that is the very broad overview of our meeting, and I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve those unless anybody has any questions.
We have a motion, we get a second, second, any further discussion or questions? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. McKee, welcome. We thought you were out here supervising the paving crew.
That's where I've been, flagging traffic. A lot of people from Westminster apparently know that. Sorry I am late, but.
You got here just in time for the fun. We're on item number F.
Thank you.
Secretary Treasurer report, Ms. Stevens.
Okay, the report is in your packet there with the graph on the back. We have a total combined of $12,804,479 in all the accounts, with cash and investments. And all the bank statements have been reconciled through December. And I finally got caught up with the accountant giving me the reconciliation letters, and I emailed them out to all of you, so you should have them. They were emailed on the 27th. So we finally got caught up with that, and I have 3 CDs that are maturing at the end of the month that will be reinvested. And they're each for $245.
Bank of California, good. It didn't burn there.
Any other questions for Lynn? Comments? All right, I entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Coney County Government Update regarding matters involved in wastewater. I don't believe we have anyone here from the county. Presentation discussion items. Board and Commissioners to assess the goals they established for the agency during February and March of 2024. Board meetings. You have that in your packet. What tab is that, man?
Line 5.
So I was reading through these earlier today. It looks like we did most of these things. So I guess my question to you as a board is, do we want to set additional goals for 2025? Or what is the pleasure of the board?
If I may speak about that. So what, and this goes back to an item that Mayor Ramey had asked us to do several years ago, and we began at that time, maybe 2, if not 3 years ago. So what we did was put together the goals, assess them at the end of each calendar year, and then develop new goals. I think last year what was asked to be done was to review the goals from the past year, then in February at the committee meetings, have the committees come up with goals from within the committees themselves, and then bring those collectively to the board at the March meeting. So that's the plan. You know, you of course could provide input at any time or at the March meeting itself, but the committees will be looking to establish the goals for this current year.
Bob and Celia, does that work for you guys? Next meeting? All right. Is that good with everyone? Everyone else okay with that? All right, we'll proceed down that path. Action items. Approve executive director to execute agreement with Harper General Contractors Incorporated for no fee to establish contract terms for the CMAR contract as a function of OJRSA project number 2024-06 as recommended by KCI Technologies, pending funding agency approval. Mr. Elliott.
All right, this is, the items 1 and 2 on this agenda have to do with our SCIP project that we have to replace the dewatering system inside the brick buildings you see out the window, the belt press building. So again, these kind of go hand in hand. We have the funds available through SCIP. They've been allocated and approved by us as well through the budgeting process. So item 1 would be for Harper, with the contract for them. Item 2 would be the not to exceed amendment for the $4.2 million, which included the identified contingency amount when we get to that. This did go before the O&P committee. At that time, we did not have a set fee established, yet for the total cost for the project. We determined that sometime last week. But for either of these 2 items, I could reach Steve Bartman, the engineer for this project, on the phone. I just told him to be on standby if it were any questions specifically for him that he may need to address.
Does anyone have any questions for Chris or consultant that may be on the line for items 1 or 2?
Steve was here during our committee meeting, able to address questions that we had. And pretty straightforward.
Sure was.
All right, for item number 1, do we have a motion?
I'll move. Motion.
Second.
Second.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Item number 2, I'm gonna read it so we have it for the record. Approve executive director to execute contract amendment number 1 with Harper General Contractors Incorporated, amount of $4.2 million to include $176,902.39 for contingency for the release and authorization of work for the dewatering upgrade project as a function of the OJRSA project 2024-06 as recommended by KCI Technologies pending funding agency approval.
So moved.
Motion, have a second?
Second.
Motion second, did you get the second, Lynn?
Mhm.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3, consider making the memorandum from Pope Flynn LLC entitled Options for Future Reorganization Next Steps dated November 26, 2024 that was presented at the Ad Hoc Sewer Feasibility Implementation Committee on January 9th, 2025, available to the public. Mr. Elliott.
All right, as a function of the feasibility study that the board had adopted and approved back in September, we had a deadline for Mr. Flynn to look into 3, I think there were 3 options that he was to evaluate in that. One was the status quo that would continue just like we're doing. The second being that we, for lack of a better term, reorganize or consider reorganizing or restructuring to allow for us to operate in a more efficient manner. And option 3 was, if I remember this one correctly as well, about relinquishing our services to an outside area regional wastewater utility provider or a utility provider in general that could serve multiple regions. So that was given to the board or given to the committee at the December 2nd meeting with the homework assignment to digest that and then be prepared to discuss it when Lawrence was here for the January meeting that we had last month. So in the discussions that we've had, whether it be online or offline, that I've had with several commissioners independent of one another, and plus with the consensus that, the folks would like to have the discussions as open as possible and, in the sunlight, it was considered to put up for vote to allow Lawrence's memo, which, it is a protected document right now based on attorney-client privilege. It's up to the board to vote to approve to make this a public document. So that's what is being asked on the agenda tonight, to allow for that to be done. And if so, I do have copies of it printed and ready to be handed out this evening. And that memo was sent out to the board as well. So the board has it as well as the ad hoc committee.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Yeah, I'll second.
Release it, make it
Yeah.
public document.
I
Okay, we
agree.
have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
This doesn't, Mr. Brandt, you may have to help with this one, by voting to release this document, it doesn't release any
It doesn't make a
future
decision,
documents.
it's either one of the 3. It's just out there for public information. And let me say this much, I would endorse making it public. I think the thing to do is, the worst thing anybody ever does is legislate rules and process.
Is there any, if he's asked to provide any further legal opinion on any one of those specific items, would you have to once
can
again
still do
do
that.
each item?
Yeah.
It wouldn't automatically release those?
Excuse me?
This vote wouldn't automatically release any other future legal opinions he has on that
No,
matter? So we
just this one.
just this one?
And if you go ask for further clarification or whatever, you could keep that. It's only this one opinion.
Okay.
And be restricted to this. Giving them the options and putting it out there and let you get feedback from citizens.
So we're obviously gonna have to be asked to vote on something. I think everybody needs to have the same basic understanding of why we're voting on what we're doing.
Mhm.
All that makes sense?
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? All right, we have a motion, second, we've had discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Would anyone like a copy of this now around the table? I've got copies.
Would you mind passing?
Sure, but now they're gonna be reading that, and not paying attention to us.
That's right.
It might be fair.
Not on purpose.
No, wait.
Now we can do whatever we want, they're not gonna listen to us.
Yeah.
You have a
Wait till
copy
you, wait till you go to
already.
bed at night before you
Thanks, sir.
start.
You want a paper copy for your file?
Yeah, I'd like to. I might want to be a member of the public and comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item number 4, adopt necessary changes based on South Carolina Department of Environmental Services review of the OJRSA sewer use regulation, authorize OJRSA to publicly advertise for public comments, which shall be considered at the March 8th, 2025 board meeting. Mr. Ellery.
All right, we had received some comments back from DES on the draft revision of the sewer use regulation that was discussed earlier. I guess this was mid to late summer last year. The board, I believe, approved draft revision. They went down to DES for consideration, and they provided back a couple of comments. Now, in what I sent out last week was a memo on the front of this, and any item in that table on pages 2, 3, or 4 in that memo, it was just a regular black text, had already been addressed and approved by the board. Anything that was either a red font or a highlighted yellow font in there was items that was addressed either for clarification by Michael Trainum or were addressed at the request of Casey Jarman with DES. So, with that said, we do have a draft revision that is ready. What is being asked for today is not to approve this for implementation at this time as policy, but rather to approve it to issue for public notice for a 30-day comment period, where the board will hear questions and concerns about it at the following meeting. And then we could do that at either the March 6th meeting, if it indeed is moved to that date, or we can push it out to the April board meeting. The March board meeting may be kind of hectic as it is with the discussion about rates and cost of service, but we just want to make sure that we give the public as much opportunity as we can to review it. And there is a clean copy of it. I say clean, it incorporates all the changes in it to make it easier to read. And there's also a marked up or dirty copy of it, so you can see the strike throughs of what has been removed. The red, I believe it's red underlined in there for what's been added. And I think there's some green in there for some things that were moved from one area to the other when Word would operate perfectly and allow for that to be done and shown that way. So that's what's being asked for tonight is consideration for this to be advertised for public comment.
Now, that was what you emailed out and asked us all, yeah.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So as you consider, if you want to make a motion, as a part of your motion, specify either March or April board meeting. Is that what you're asking, Chris?
I think so. You know, what I stated on here was for March, but after I got thinking about it earlier today, I'm not so sure that's just not going to be a lot to digest.
And
For
what was the
March
April meeting?
The April meeting would be the first.
It would be April the 7th.
April 7th.
I make a motion, we adopt the necessary changes based on SCDES's review of the sewer use regulation and authorize the executive director and staff to publicly advertise the comments. Public comments which shall be considered at the April 7th, 2025 board meeting.
I have a motion.
Second.
Have a second. Any further discussion?
Could I make a request? If at all possible, could you have something that is very simple to understand, maybe a 1 or 2 pager that can be shared with the community. So when we ask them for public comments, they actually know how it's affecting them, if it's a change in regulation.
So if we can work on doing that, it may be more than 1 or 2 pages,
Yeah.
it's gonna be pretty
Well,
extensive.
And I understand that, but
Highlighting the changes.
I don't know of hardly any citizen that's going to read the entire regulation and know how it affects them. So even if it's just,
We can work on
sorry.
that.
I just want to make sure, we do public comments all the time, and we have people that say they're gonna come, and then, I don't know if it's the timing issue, or if it has to do with the regulation, and then we don't hear from them, and I think sometimes it's because they don't understand how. it
Yeah,
affects
I'll put together something and we'll get that out there. We'll put it on the website. But just speaking of, I'll put Lawrence Flynn's memo on the website as well, a PDF of it. I'll post that tomorrow. But yes, I'll work on something with flyers.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any more discussion? All right, all in favor? Please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5, adopt resolution 2025-01 to amend the OJRSA financial and accounting policy exhibit D. Mr. Elliott.
All right, thank you. This went before the F&A committee last week, and the bulk of it, if not all of it, had to do with some items that Ms. Stevens found when going through her day-to-day tasks that either made her job more difficult to do or somewhat in conflict with how we were doing things or how we should be doing things. So we discussed this with Hope Flynn, who put the original policy together for us, and there were several changes that we get presented to committee, went through committee with approval, so we're gonna ask for it to be approved today with an effective date of immediately upon approval by the board, if so, that's done today. And again, I think there's the same thing in here, just in your booklet that shows a marked up copy of what's changed as well as a clean copy too. So if there's any questions about that, I'll probably have to direct you to Ms. Stevens, since she's the primary user of this policy with the day-to-day accounting and financial matters that take place here. So if you would want to add to that.
A lot of this was just stuff like me making deposits at the bank. It didn't allow me to do that. It didn't allow me to stop payments on check. And it had some things to do with like our merchant that we collect credit card payments only goes into one account. We've got 5 accounts. I have to make transfers sometimes from one account to the other depending on what's being paid, and I wasn't able to do that. And it's allowed me to do that, but I mean, it's still gonna be following up where somebody in the executive committee is gonna know what I'm doing, that if I'm not just doing it on my own. So, but I mean, it was stuff like that that needed to be addressed because it's what I normally do and it was preventing me from doing it.
And we all want your life to be simple. Because you do some of the best minutes in anybody.
Absolutely, no question about it.
All right, my commentary side, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
And a motion, second. All in favor, oh, I'm sorry, any further discussion, questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I want to make a quick comment about Lynn here. I'm on the finance council in our church, and I was asked to start taking minutes. And I did, and I tried to mimic her detail. Folks told me real quick, we don't need that.
All right, item number 6, approve moving the March board meeting to Thursday, March 6, 2025 at 4 p.m. to allow for Willdan Financial to present its findings from the rate and cost of service study. Mr. Elliott.
Right, as we discussed back in reaching out to you, that Mr. Parker, Daryl Parker with Willdan, was not going to be available to come to the meeting today. We were hoping to have him present at the February meeting, but I think he already had a scheduled vacation plan. So then he was gonna come to the March meeting. I think he found out then they had a scheduling conflict already as well. So he provided 3 dates of potential options for that. 2 of them were sometime this month when I think I had conflicts already. One of them I think was maybe even during a committee meeting. So we just figured it'd be best just to look at possibly moving the board meeting for March back from Monday to Thursday of that same week. Have it at the same time as we normally do, 4 o'clock, but have it then Mr. Parker will be able to attend that, and he will go through his findings. And he also has, from what I understand, a fairly interactive model. So he can go in, you can ask him questions, and he can plug in and make changes based on his, what questions he may have about how something may affect the rate, or he has all these, really using these, the 20-year master plan with the figures in there. He had us go and develop those into a priority 1 through 3 type of a rating system, where priority 1 was the highest items that need to be completed, and then priority 3 would be some things that would be nice to incorporate. A lot of that may be growth related, specifically for growth. So he can make some of those changes on the fly based on how we asked him about looking at different priorities, and it may be possible for him to look at, some other items in there too. So I think I'll get a demonstration of it sometime between now and then. I believe that's what you have to look forward to next month.
All right, do we have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
All right. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? Is it most everyone gonna be able to make that meeting time?
Yeah, I reached out to everyone independently, and that was the one day that everybody could do.
Very good. Very good. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Executive Director, discussion and compliance matters.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, just one item that I have to mention about this, and it has to do with an SSO on the line that you've heard way too many times. That has to do with the Speeds Creek Force Main, the pump station that it serves kind of the southeastern portion of Seneca, but most of the flow, if not all of the flow from the eastern side of the system goes through this station as well. So the pipe we had another small break, the one that's here behind me that has the groove that's worn out of the bottom, that the consultants have determined was based on the soil conditions that had caused, or electrolysis, I guess would be the right word, that affected the ions, the structural integrity of the pipe. So we had the spill was about 400 gallons. We were able to recover about 200 gallons of that. It did not reach a waterway, but it's still required to be documented as a spill for internal purposes. And I think we're approaching around 20 breaks on this line in the last 7 or 8 years, if I remember correctly. So, and that's obviously is on that list as a priority 1, but I don't know how much longer we're just going to keep waiting to fix it. So it may be an item that we look at just budgeting to replace part of, if not the entire thing, next year, which is about $2.8 million worth of repairs, including the design. It will have to be permitted because it will be a material and size change, because the pipe diameter that we have in there now is a 14-inch duct line pipe, and it's just a very odd size that you have to have custom made. I think the last time we bought several truckloads of it, and this may be Mr. Ferris and Mr. Harris. I guess y'all are the 2 board members that we have that have been on long enough to remember probably back in 2015 or 16 when we bought a couple of truckloads just to have on the yard to make repairs specifically on this line. And of course we're going to be approaching the end of that. Now I think we did replace, and I think this is prior to me starting here, replaced several, I'm going to say maybe in the hundreds of feet of that line. And we've already had breaks on the part that's been replaced within the last 10 years or so. So again, as we've identified, the consultants have identified what the problem is because nobody really knew what it was. It's not all that uncommon in pipelines, force mains, to have degradation along the top of the pipe where you have hydrogen sulfide that'll be causing that corrosion of the crown. But nobody that I had spoken to had seen what we've experienced down there, which is the problem down in the bottom of the pipe. It's just a very unique situation.
Is this exterior side of the pipe or is it
Interior.
interior?
After the meeting, just take a look at the pipe,
Yeah, I'll
that
take
small
a-
piece beside me. You can see signs of external corrosion as well, but the problems that where we're seeing is on the inside of the pipe. And it is a strange situation that we've had. We've had leaks down there that have occurred where they'll be, they typically get called in to Seneca Light and Water as a water leak and then get relayed over to us. But we'll have it where they're called in and we go out there. By the time we get out there, the ground's dry, and it may be dry for, a long period of time, days, weeks. Well, what we think's happening is that debris, be it, rags or whatever it is going through the line, is essentially plugging these holes in the pipe as, it moves up. So it's almost in a way repairing itself temporarily until we're able to get out there and find it next time and make the fix. But, this is an item that's been identified in our consent order. We wanted to wait till the master plan was finished to tell us, whether we were going to be upsizing or downsizing that pump station. And I think in the distant future, 10, 15, 20-year time frame, I think it does have in the master plan to reroute the Martin Creek force main and bypass speeds, which means that pump station would likely be downsized at that time. But we can't continue to go just patching it back together the way we're doing it. We're replacing that pipe the most expensive way possible, and that's a few feet of it at a time. So I think it's time for us to go ahead and do as much of an in-kind replacement as we can until the time comes and, down the road that we do something with that Martin Creek force main.
How many feet total are we talking about
I don't know what the
Okay.
total number of feet is. I'll have to go and pull that out of the master
Would
plan.
the repair be an internal liner that goes through that, or would you dig it all up?
We wouldn't be able to do it. That's one of the things we talked about doing. It would be great if we could, use a cured in place technology or the trenchless technology, but there's so much flow on that line and the inability to bypass where we're doing the work, we wouldn't be able to keep up with it. So the only way to do it would be laying a parallel line and abandoning the old one once it's out of the way. But there's just too much flow going.
You want to add that to an agenda item on our committee and discuss it further?
Well, we can. Yeah, I can do that.
Just when you sell something, it's got ready and kind of fed it out. Got some ideas to sit here and think and listen to you.
All right. And that's really all the compliance items that I was going to discuss. I-85 corridor sewer update. Last week, I believe it was the 28th, we received our first application for a connection down that way from a citizen. So now it's almost trying to figure out how the whole process is supposed to work. So, first, the way we're gonna do it was they were gonna apply for service at Pioneer Water. Pioneer was gonna alert us, much like what we do with the cities currently. And then they, when they were ready to connect, they'd come pay their impact fees and go ahead and do their work. We verify the work has been completed, let Pioneer know that they're on sewer now, they can start the bill. Well, after discussing this with Pioneer a few weeks ago, we found out that Pioneer said that they would add them on as an existing or a current customer the date they applied for service. Well, it may not be for several weeks until they're actually physically connected to sewer. So we did an about face. They're going to work with us first, then we're going to go to Pioneer and have the customer apply for service at that time. So they'll notify us, they'll pay their impact fee. There's no tap fees because the county already installed the taps as we put the line in. And we'll go out there and inspect the connection, then either us or Pioneer will have them fill out the rest of the paperwork to give to Pioneer to add them as a customer. So that was a big day last week. Honest to goodness, I think I'm gonna make up a little certificate, letting them know they're the first customer on the southern part of the county sewer system.
So how will that work? Okay, so it'll be part of Pioneer's system, so will they bill for the water and sewer and then pay us the sewer?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll still be our sewer customer, but we don't have the means, they're not gonna have a separate sewer meter on these connections.
Sure.
So it'll be just like what we do with the cities.
Okay.
The Pioneer will bill them for water, sewer. There'll be a line item on their bill for their wastewater services, and then they'll remit payment back to us, just like the cities currently do now. I think it was last week, we sent out a little mailer, kind of a generic general letter about, to all the parcels down that way that are eligible to connect. We sent them a copy of the map showing that if you're along, it's the same one you've seen in the slideshow, that if you're in this area, this green line runs beside your property, whether, whichever side of the road is you're on, you're more than likely eligible to connect to sewer. And we provided them with instructions on what they needed to do, as well as the benefits of connecting to sewer if they chose to do so, the benefits of staying on septic if they chose to do that, as well as another reminder out there, because I knew there was some controversy about this and maybe some misunderstanding, that we were going to force customers to connect to sewer. So we amended the regulation back, this was the amendment to the regulation back a year or two ago. I think it was October 2023 was when it went into effect, that stated, made it clear we are not going to make you connect and abandon a perfectly functioning septic tank if you choose to stay on your septic tank. That was never the intent of it. We're not out there to force people to connect to the sewer system if they have a permitted and operational septic tank. Now, DES, when they have to go and issue if they have to go and install a new septic tank, DES will have them connect at that time if they are adjacent to the sewer system, because at that time, public sewer will be considered available. Let's see what else here. I spoke several meetings ago, I believe it was maybe November or so time frame, about some concerns or delays that we were having with Moorhead that were going to probably result in liquidated damages. All of those have been resolved. There were no assessment of liquidated damages. We were able to get all items adequately addressed and corrected, not just to my satisfaction, but I spoke with Ms. Brock with the county, and she was fine with it as well, just to continue moving forward with it. We do have the permit to operate it, as you know. So, there's a few still punch list items that we've elected or allowed them to work on under the warranty of the system, but in no way does it affect the system or its integrity as a whole. It's like we let them use a couple of rings and covers for manholes that we had here because they were on such a back order for them to be able to obtain. So they're just ordering these and replacing our stock when they come in. Just, a few things like that. And lastly, something I did speak about at the F&A committee is that we are working with an attorney that does knowingly specialize in contractual matters regarding an operational contract with Oconee County regarding any phase 3 or future projects for operating and maintaining the sewer system for Oconee County. And I believe that's everything I have.
Regarding Moorhead, now that essentially was just, they had not updated their prints to what what they were supposed to actually look like?
That was the primary driver. So with DES would not issue the operating permit for that system without having a record drawing set of what was installed down that way. So I think that they had sent a surveyor out, if I understand this or remember it correctly, that Moorhead had sent a surveyor out to capture what was done, but some of the information, I don't think the surveyor captured all the information that was required, so they had to go back out a second time. So that was what the delay was
Okay.
with
I
it.
thought that was it. Yeah.
You know, because if you remember, there was a time, when I made made our engineer state this, that, there was a time I think I publicly said they told us we were gonna have sewer service back in
June.
midsummer in June. But that was where all the surveying stuff happened, and then we had the issue with the pipe that was under the lake, and they weren't able to absolve some issues with the air inside the force mains. They had to go in and install another 1 or 2 air release valves in there to be able to get the flow up to or near the design flow for the pump stations to satisfy us as the owner and to satisfy DES as well based on the construction permit for the project. So, there was things like that.
Okay.
But here we are, we have a pipeline dysfunctional now.
All right, we'll move on to next item, commissioners' discussion. It's time for your free-for-all. Whatever questions you got. Anyone? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the next item, which is executive session. Receipt of legal advice, discussion of reconstitution options. Do I have a motion?
I have to make a motion that we go into executive session.
A motion, and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll take just a few minutes to let folks. Third. I'll sign that one.
Okay, we're ready.
All right, we are coming out of executive session. We received legal advice related to reconstitution options, and that reconstitution was referencing the OJRSA board. I'll now entertain any motion anyone would like to offer up as a result of the legal advice we received.
Mr. Chair, I would, I'll make a motion that we affirm the decision of our executive committee with regards to the decision they made to request Mr. Lawrence Flynn, our legal counsel, to continue evaluating the legal procedures regarding the reconstitution of the board as presented by the sewer feasibility study group.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have a list of the upcoming meetings. You can read those for yourself. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. We are adjourned.
I enjoyed reading Father's obituary.
Lynn, this one's got
Sounds like quite a
Bob's
man.
name on it.
Yeah, it's guy.
Do you want Bob to sign it or?
Hold on just one second.
I think you just strike through it and sign instead.
They don't really want to see Bob's
No,
minutes.
they don't feel like.
Yeah, he needs it.
Yeah, that was.
I say too many times a month.
Well, I'm gonna leave Bob